Pittsburgh are rolling down that eastern seaboard.
Hey y'all, the Cowboy Trucker here. My beautiful wife Sable behind the camera, and our trucking dog's on the other side of the truck underneath the mud flap on the towel, performing security for us today.
Hop inside, 6 days on the road, and I'm gonna make it home tonight.
And today we're here because we got an air leak in our suspension. So our airbags are getting weather checked and they're going bad and they're leaking. The front axle so bad it's actually strings from the airbag coming out and it's leaking air. So we're gonna show you how to swap these out. They're really simple and not that hard. So when you get in over top of the frame, this is our airbag we're swapping out. We'll be doing the other side later. Alright, and swapping out these airbags are really simple. This one here is a bolt-on type. It has 2 bolts that go down through the frame. The type we're swapping them out for are the stud type. So the studs come up through the bottom of the rail and you put nuts on. And when I use the stud types, you can use a little bit of red RTV or a blue thread locker. Don't use the red stuff because you'll never get it back off. So all there is to it is you want to get all the air out of your system. So you want to drain your tanks, and then your suspension will sit down on the ground and collapse on itself. And then take a wrench and get this line loose here. This here is a compression fitting. So you unscrew this and this line will just pull off, and then we'll take a wrench and unscrew it from the top of the airbag. And then we can take a ratchet, and it looks like about 13 millimeter or 1/2 inch, and take these bolts out. Now, these bolts will break, almost guaranteed. They will just break off. Now, stud types are less prone to breaking over a while, but they still break off too. And your bottom carriage bolt, there's a bolt in the bottom here, which I'll show you later, goes through the bottom and the center to help hold your airbag in place. You notice how my airbags are not leaning forward, backward, side to side. If your airbags ever lean forward, backward, side to side, that could be what's damaging your airbags too. So look out for that when you do your pre-trips. They should be completely vertical up and down. And then if they're leaning any way whatsoever, that means your something has shifted and you need to go get your alignment checked. But this is just a simple airbag change, and it's supposed to take only an hour according to the books, but it'd probably take us 2 or 3 hours because this is an older truck, and we got Becky here. She always wants to give us a hard time for some reason, but she's a great working truck. I'm going to get everything together, get all the tools together, and I'll be back with you when we start taking the top of this everything loose. I'm going to go ahead and let all the air out too. Okay, so we're here finishing letting the air out of all of our tanks. You want to drop all the air out of the system so that way when you take the airlines apart and you don't have no air pressure making it harder, you tear something up, and this is just for safety. Alright, so we just changed our air dryer filter up front. We got another video you can check out on our channel about that. In that video you'll see that these here drain when we drain the air system, but now they're holding their air. So some of our air loss had to be with our air dryer. So one thing I can think of, after I cleaned all that up, I sprayed some brake cleaner through the system and cleaned it all up. And the valve in the bottom of the air dryer could have been a little sticky due to moisture and crud and dirt. Well, we cleaned all that up when we put the new filter on. So that could have been one of the sources of our leaks. Another one is this airbag. Right now it's not leaking obviously, but sometimes it does. And when it's losing a whole lot of material, and sorry about the wind, it's really picking up kind of bad. But so what we're going to do is crack this air line on the system here. Like I said, this is a compression fitting. Gotta get the right size wrench. Alright, I believe this is the right size wrench. Yep. So when you're taking things loose, lefty loosey righty tighty unless it has reverse threads. So let's push it down. We're going to crack this valve, the air line. Keep taking it loose. I don't know why they're going away from compression fittings. If you do these compression fittings right, they do not leak. Just want to be wary about keeping your hands near that line because it could pop off because it's under pressure. Trying to create an air leak to drain these bags. Now on this one here, it doesn't have a bolt going through. It has an actual stud in the bottom. This one with a bolt with a nut on it. So our airbags we replaced this with are made in reverse. And she's getting ready to break free. She might be completely off already. Yeah, so it looks like she's done. There goes the wrench. So we're gonna try to wiggle this out, try to create an air leak. There we go. When you do that, be careful because all the air is gonna drop out of the system and the truck's gonna squat down. All right, so she's pretty flat. So we're gonna find the wrench to fit this down here. So this fitting is 7/8, so you're not gonna wrap it around like that. So I'm covered in grease. That's a fifth wheel. All right. So we're gonna get a wire brush, clean up around the threads and stuff, and try not to break that off. Now, these here can get quite dirty, and with the paint and stuff on it, to help keep it adhered, and we don't want to tear this fitting up. We want to reuse it. They get quite expensive nowadays too. Trying to keep costs down as much as possible. And if it doesn't break off, you can always clean up all your tools and stuff and go get penetrating oil like WD-40, spray it down with that, and then come back with a wire brush and clean it up some more again later. All right, 7/8 wrench. She's a little snug, but she's breaking free without breaking the fitting itself. Now, sometimes when you're going from different type of airbags made by different people, you might have to get new fittings anyway, because sometimes they don't put the same size hole on top of the airbag. So before we do anything else, we're going to get the airbag out of our headache rack and test this fitting. Now, old mechanic trait, I want to clean this off as much as possible. I don't have air out here right now, so I'm just trying to clean this as much as possible because I don't want that stuff dropping in anywhere. Even though we're throwing the airbag away, just old habits die hard sometimes. All right, as you can see, this air fitting has gotten quite nasty over the years. So we're just going to take our wire brush and scrape away from our face and get it cleaned up as best as possible and get all that junk out of the threads, because you want to reseal these threads so you don't get air leaks. So it doesn't have to be perfect, you just want to try to get the crud out. There's another trick you can use too, is wire strippers. You can put the wire strippers on here and just twist this through and it'll clean your threads out. Looks like that's what we're going to have to do with this case. So I got to go find my wire strippers and clean these up before I put it back on. This end is pretty good. It's not bad. Yeah, so that's not bad at all. But this is pretty bad. So we want to get all that cleaned up as best as possible. So I'm gonna come around the truck and grab the airbag.
I got my diesel wound up and she's a running like I never before. There's a speed zone ahead, well, all right. I don't see a cop in sight. 6 days on the road and I'm gonna make it home tonight. I got me 10 forward gears on a Georgia overdrive. I'm taking little white pills and my eyes are open wide.
For replacing our airbags, we got the roll force airbags to replace it with. Let me find somewhere where the wind ain't gonna take my box. So when you buy your new airbags from different manufacturers, look at your old equipment and look what you new and see what the differences are. Make sure it's still gonna work. So airbags you can make work. Here's the bolt that we put in through the bottom. These tend to break. So this is the nut, and the nut off the old one should work on this one. Should be the same size. If not, then we'll go to a hardware store. But they tend to break off and be no good, or you can't get the nut off the old one. Here's the air spring stud. Now, what I found when you're doing your airbags, the stud comes in down the bottom of this, right here. So I would like to put Loctite on it. When I put it in, this here will already be inserted, and on your truck. And all you do is run the stud through the bottom of this with the Loctite on and turning it in. You can put 2 nuts on the bottom of this thread and lock them in on each other. You can use that to set this really tight in the bottom of that. So, all right, like I was saying earlier, we want to double check and make sure this is fitting before we do anything else, because right now, as it stands, we can go ahead and put this back together and go to a hardware store or anywhere we need to go. We had to go to a hardware store already to get a nut and washers for these studs. So as we know, it's going to fit just fine. So we're going to set this back down out of the way, and we're going to continue to remove this airbag. Now I was guessing that there's my cheater bar on the ground. I was guessing that they're about 13. It looked, I think, but they're actually 14 millimeter or 9/16. So I like using this cheap ratchet because I can use it as a breaker bar if I got to. So these been painted and dirty, rusted. So clean it up so it'll fit. There we go. All right, I can't really get levers from the top, so I'm gonna go underneath and break those loose. This is 3/4 inch for the bolt down here, and this bolt is a lock nut. All right. Now I can get more levers down here to actually break this off loose. So this one's coming off without much fuss. Little impacts and stuff like that make this work really faster, but I'm not in no hurry. So this here is the bolt style, and of course if it's not stripped and not broken, I'm going to clean it up and put it in my toolbox. You never have enough spare bolts and nuts. Never know what will come up when you need it again. All right. Everybody talks about impacts. The old school style impact is hitting it with a hammer in your hand. It feels like this one's stripping out a bit. When working on old equipment, that's what I was talking about. It should only take a certain amount of time, but I can't get on it really well because still got rust and stuff in the way. Well, she keeps popping, so I'm gonna get back out and find a wrench if I can get a wrench on it. I don't want to completely strip that out. Can't get on it too well with the socket. Well, I do like these bolt-on styles better. They come in and out easier. Now we got this one broke free. It was rusted to the rail right here pretty bad, so we got it off finally. But why I like these better, they're sliding out better. So when we go put the new ones, I got the studs, we're going to have to really squish it and force it in. It's going to be a little difficult. But this here, it just slides out because it doesn't have no studs. Let me roll this out, and I'll show you exactly why we're changing these. See, this is exactly the same like I showed you earlier. Exactly the same as the old one that pulled off. This one here, you don't want to extend out. Alright, so like I was talking about earlier, I wish this here was a bolt-on style still, because these long studs are going to make this a pain in the butt to get back in. And when you install it, you want to make sure this hole is facing in like the other one, so you can put everything back together the way it came off. I don't want this in against my frame rail, so I'm taking it off. Alright, now we got this off finally. Like I said, Becky, she's old. She loves to give us challenges. So, no, it's exactly the same like our brand new one. Now let me get the carriage bolt. Stick this down here a little bit. Let's get some purchase. So I got a way to maybe try to pull this out so you can get a better look. There we go. All right. Here's your airbag overextended. But this is where we get a better look at the damages going on. You see this weather checking and dry rotting right here? See where this is coming off? The bands are just coming right on off all the way around. This one here was completely failed not too far from now. And right here is where she's leaking. See where this piece here is completely out to? That there is almost all the way through. So air escapes that hole right there, the little small hole. But you can see where that's in the bend right there. That bend is where it sits on here and bends over to keep this airbag in its shape. So with that sitting down on here, this here helps seal that hole up with the weight on it. So a lot of times this wouldn't leak. But I know this bobtailing or lightweight starting to lose air, or we'll be in a pump where drop axle is holding this axle and the rear axle is holding this axle up a little bit, and you can hear the air just rushing right out of this bag. So when you start seeing this checking right here, it's time to change your airbags. It's because I ran mine a little bit longer, but I'm also a mechanic and I've been carrying extra airbags. Just in case they fell on me on the road, I can swap them out on the side of the road really quick. So, learn how to do this stuff. You can run your equipment to almost failure and carry your spares when you know they're going bad. Save you, get more life, and put more money in your pocket in the long run. I like saving these carriage bolts because it didn't break. That means it's still good. We can clean this up and reuse it. And talk about saving money. We can take those brand new carriage bolts if this don't break when I take this apart to clean it. Then we can take those brand new ones back and get our money back. But always get them, always get a washer, always get a nut with Teflon and a locking nut with those back. You can always take all back and your money back if you don't need them. All right, like I said, this is a stud type. You don't want to pry these and squish them too much. So with the stud type, you're going to need a 20-ton jack, be disconnected from your trailer with plenty of room to jack up your suspension. And when you jack up your suspension, you're not going to be jacking the whole thing up, you're just lifting in it. So you could put it on the spring hanger, for example. So I'm going to jack this truck up right here by the spring hanger when I go to install this. And I reinstalled the cap cover for the air fitting. We don't want any debris or anything to fall in here while we're installing it. So I'm going to slide this in until the studs are hit the frame, and then I'm going to jack this up, and we'll see you when we get there. All right, so we get this slid in, and you can tell this is a pretty tight fit already. So you want to slide it in as much as you can to help hold it, and then get a carriage bolt put in the bottom later. But the main goal is get the studs in through those holes. This is what I was talking about. You can't just slide these things on like the old ones can. The old ones had a better design. I liked it better. So instead, get the old trusty bottle jack out. Like I said, you can jack on the boneless hanger, but I wouldn't do it if you're lifting the whole axle up. I would actually jack underneath the axles themselves when you're trying to change a tire or something like that. I need to tighten the screw. All right, tighten that up. It might actually work. All right. Attempt 2. See if the cowboy trucker can actually jack up his suspension. All right, you see she's wobbling already? So never put your hands in these pinch points. Just get enough to where I'm holding this in case this jack falls. You want to jack this up to where that screw almost clears. With me, I got a hole right here. So I can sit here and watch it. Doesn't have to completely clear, just almost clear. All right. All right. She hasn't completely cleared, but cleared enough where I can put some down pressure on her, and then try to get her to line up. But she pretty much has cleared. All right. So she's lined up on that hole. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the carriage bolt, put it in through the bottom, that way it stays aligned. Then you get her thread started, because you got to get her lined up and get her thread started. That's why you do this before you do anything else at this point. As you can tell, she could be a pickle. This is why you get this carriage bolt started before you do anything else at that point, because now I got to realign those studs. But now this carriage bolt started pretty good. Gotta help hold this in line. Ta-da! Now he slowly lets you jack down and watch that second stud and make sure it goes in the hole and not on the frame. All right, you see how she went in the hole? Now we can let the jack all the way down. Remove the jack. For this, we're not truly underneath the truck or anything, so don't waste your time with jack stands. If jack falls, you're not going to be in the area where you get hurt. All right, at this point, it looks like the studs are shorter than the other. It's not. The bottom bracket's angled, but we had to go to the hardware store and buy aluminum washers and nuts. This is not steel, this is aluminum. So I went ahead and got the aluminum nuts to put on here. You want to Loctite these if you get a lot of vibrations and stuff, but gravity's helping us out on this side, and in a day of driving, I'm going to double check them, retorque them. And these here, I don't use a torque spec, I just tighten them down pretty tight. Don't want to go too tight because they're aluminum, they will break off. These here just keep your airbag from sliding back and forward and help keep your airbag vertical. The good news is, since it is aluminum, it won't rust. All right, let me grab the ratchet. So we'll do this in reverse order. I'll go ahead and tighten these down. So this here's a pretty big socket. It's a 1/2-inch drive, so it has just enough clearance to allow you to properly tighten these down. So I don't have to worry about deep well. I can keep better control of the ratchet and go faster. Like I said, they're aluminum, you don't want to crank down too much. That should do it. Now you just brush all the rust and debris, paint chips, whatever, away from the hole. Pull this out. This is our adapter that we cleaned. It's a 90-degree elbow for the airline. All right, here it is. Now this is White Seal Plus. This is just a liquid thread sealer. You can use this anywhere you don't have a whole lot of heat, because this stuff is flammable, goes on liquid, but dries solid and ensures you won't have any air leaks. And stuff like this, I tend not to wear gloves, even though I know I'm going to get dirty. And so that way I could better grab stuff, because with the rubber gloves, I tend to still have trouble grabbing stuff. I don't mind to get a little dirty, but if it's something toxic, of course, I'm going to wear the rubber gloves. So I got that coated. All right, so get this level and screw this on. The hose originally was facing from the front, so you want to orient it the same way you had it taken off. So you screw this down here and get it as tight as you can by hand. Then you grab your wrench. Start getting it facing the direction you want. So it's not that hard to turn by wrench yet. So I'm going to do another rotation if we can. If not, we just back it back off. Okay, it looks like it's going to be too tight, so we're just going to back her back off. Right there. And that white thread sealer will keep it from leaking. This here's a compression fitting, so you don't have to worry about sealing those threads. It has a fitting inside this nut here, the cap, that you put a little pressure against to seal off the line. All right, this is the adapter. This is 90-degree elbow for the air supply for the airbag coming out to the front of the here. This is how it was when we took it apart. We're going to install it the same way. All right, this airline here looked like it might rub against this right here. That's not true. It's just they're deflated. So when they inflate, this won't be nowhere near the mounting bracket for your shock. Now with this has a compression fitting that fits up against the inside of here. So when you tighten this cap down, it actually creates a compression seal. You won't have no air leak. So we'll just tighten this down and put it pretty snug because, like I said, it's a compression fitting. Also, when you reuse these compression fittings, sometimes they do leak and you might need to replace it with a fresh compression fitting. But tighten it down, put it pretty snug, and we'll come back here after we air the truck up and verify nothing's leaking. Now this is brass, you can over tighten it. So when I get to where I'm close, I'll choke all the way up, put my thumb on it, and just tighten it like this until I can't no more, and then you're done. Don't force it, don't use a whole lot of strength, you don't need to. You'll just break the brass. Brass is soft metal. And as for this repair, at this point, all we gotta do is go back on the bottom and tighten the carriage bolt as tight as I can get it by hand. Okay, I'm a strong guy, so I just use a regular ratchet, and it will get plenty of tight. So tight to where you might have to break it when you get it back off. See you when we get done. All right, finally got the airbags done and inflated. The system's all aired up and no more hissing air out of this bag. So now what we're gonna do is shoot this air fitting right here with soapy water. What we're looking for is any big bubbles. There's no big bubbles, no leak. Doing around the bottom, no leak, no big bubbles. You'll see it, it'll be like you blowing bubbles, you know, like most people have done as a kid. Now we're gonna do the same thing down here with the other side, because I changed the other side back too. All right, as you can see, we made a big mess out here in the truck stop, but the front axle airbags are changed out, completely done. They're not leaking, they're holding air. So we got the rear axle and our drop axle to do later on. So we'll do the rear axle in a couple weeks when we're at home, and then we'll do the drop axle when we get back in oversizing and hauling heavy. Right now it's not important because we don't use the drop axle too much. But it's just simple. If everything goes smoothly, especially if you take care of your equipment and don't let it rust out, right now we're fixing someone else's mistakes and lack of maintenance with this truck. So this is a good truck to get out and run. You can get them cheap because they need a lot of work. So this is a good way to start out if you can fix up a truck. This is Cowboy Trucker, my beautiful wife Sable, trucking dog Xerxes, and God bless and thank you for tuning in and seeing how you change your airbag.
6 days on the road and I'm gonna make it home tonight. 6 days on the road and I'm gonna